I want your thing. Yeah, I think we're live now, sir. All right. 1 second. Let me do my normal sharing. Sharing is caring, so we can
Oh
we
yeah,
can move
sure.
on. So we can move on. Hold on. All right. All right. All right. Hold on. How are you doing, sir?
Huh?
How are you?
I'm good. Waiting on you.
Oh yeah. All right.
Yeah,
So
50. All I'm gonna say is 50.
yeah. All right.
Done
Yeah.
changed the whole world. Changed it.
Yeah. I didn't change it. All right. I
You
did.
done changed it, man. You woke up when you woke up that morning and you was like, oh.
And this is now. This is chapter 2, Mr. Ford. I'm in chapter 2 now. Can you
You
believe
in
that?
chapter two?
Chapter 2. Chapter
Mm.
2.
That chapter 2 take a minute to get started.
Chapter 2, man. I'm in chapter 2 now. All right.
Oh
All right,
God.
Mr. Ford. Now, okay. So let's get it. All right. So today, first of all, good evening, everybody. And welcome back to Unscripted. We appreciate you guys for being patient with us, and those of you that, those of you that put paper inside those virtual prayer boxes like you used to see at church. Thank you for that. Thank you for that.
You mean the ones nobody ever read? You mean
Ye-
those right there?
Yeah, those prayer boxes. Thank you for putting stuff in the prayer box and bless them, Jesus, and all
They've
that kind
been
of
in there
stuff.
since 1989.
Yeah, all of that. We need all of that.
Oh
All
my
right.
God.
So today, let's see. Let me get this. Today we are dealing with. First of all, is everyone else all right? We just talking. We ain't checking to see if the people are all right. If y'all
Yeah,
are
how
y'all
y'all doing?
are y'all good? All right. So the question of today: do you know the true status of your relationship, marriage, and or affiliated dealing? I left that affiliated dealing wide open because nowadays we have a whole ton of explanations for relationships.
Hmm.
People calling them whatever you want to call it.
Right.
Now, if you want to know where this came from, when I woke up, as you was just joking about on 50 day, right? I woke up on Saturday, and before I could think about anything else, you know how the preachers are. See, you're a preacher, and you know how preachers you ought to say, the Lord dropped a word in my spirit. I think I would just say it on Sunday.
Okay.
Well, on my birthday, he dropped this word, to talk about this. And so
Uh-huh.
it came into me to talk about I started saying, you know what? I said a lot of people have titles, rings, whatever you call it, dealings. They are in companionship and whatever.
Hmm.
But we are moving about without true clarity of just what it is happening in the relationship. You know what I'm saying? So what
Okay.
I'm saying is one. There's three ways to look at this. There is you're in a, and I say you're in a decent relationship because no one's in a perfect relationship, right?
Okay.
One is you're in a decent relationship,
You could
and
be in a
that
good
means
relationship. You could be in a good one.
yeah, good one. You're in a good relationship, and
Okay.
let's just say that means your status is active. Your status is active, your account is current, your love account is current, and the relationship is moving. It has goals. There is reciprocation. There is kindness. There is all of those things. It's
Mhm.
moving. All
Yeah.
right.
All right.
Then here is the other part. Some people don't realize that although we may have the title of that's my man, that's my woman, that's my wife, that's my husband, you may have the title, but you are not in a relationship. What's happening is there is an act of war being played out. We'll get into that, what that really entails.
Okay.
And last but not least, there is the relationship, there is the act of war, and then the last part, there is flat out. Some of us are simply sleeping with the enemy. We're gonna break that down. But first things first, let's just do this, Mr. Ford. First things first, let's talk about what a good relationship is. Just a day. Let's be real simple about it.
Okay.
So basically, a good relationship is one that is mutually dependent or interdependent. A good reason to depend on each other is survival. Just basic. That's
Okay.
just basic. That's you
Okay.
can. I know you gonna let you add. I know you got some whole nother
Yeah.
Webster in your brain. That's the one thing.
Whatever.
All right. Now another part is let's talk about the act of war. The act of war is an action by one person against another with an intention to provoke war or an action that occurs during a declaration between the two. All right, we'll get into that.
Okay.
And then the last part, what is like everybody may not know. We may know some of the meanings of an enemy, or some things we may call them, but maybe someone hasn't heard what an enemy really is. So, an enemy is a person who is actively opposed or hostile to someone or something. Actively opposed. That's key on that word. All
Okay.
right, Mr. Ford. So a lot of us, as we all know, are in relationships, marriages, dealings, a plethora of dealings. But um, many of us aren't in relationship. There is being connected, and then there's being in active relationship. That's why I said active status.
Right.
The active relationship is it is alive. It's not dead, and it's moving. It's permeating. It is putting forth fruit to bear and grow from.
Right.
And so we're gonna start there. Let's talk about the relationship piece.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
go ahead.
we're trying to define what a good relationship is, or what a
Yeah,
functioning.
we're gonna move through. We're trying to move through these spaces so that people can become conscious of their truth
Okay.
and not be in denial.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? That's all.
Okay. Okay. So I would do it like this in terms of laying a groundwork so that we all understand what a relationship is. A relationship is basically an exchanging of life with another
Mm,
person. You
yeah.
know, you're literally sharing your life with this other person, and the way that you do that, or at least the fundamental means by which you do this is communication. You talk
Mm,
with the person. You're communicating to them what your aspirations are, what your ideas are. You know,
mm,
what your dreams are, what your fears are. You're opening yourself up to them, and you're being vulnerable. You're being transparent. You're being honest. This is the substratum or the bedrock by which a relationship is established. And from that point forward, that relationship begins to grow. It begins to mature. Understand that a relationship is a living organism. And the
that's the
reason
word.
why a
Come on.
relationship is a living organism is because you are alive.
Wow.
And hopefully the other person you're with is also alive.
Alive. Yeah.
So, which means this relationship is living and breathing, which means
Mm,
it needs to be nurtured.
yeah.
Okay. It needs to be nourished. Okay. It needs to be attended to. It needs to be maintained. It's something that you have to put in work at on a daily basis. You can't ignore it. You
Mm-hmm.
can't just leave it to the side and expect things to be okay. It's something that you have to participate in on a regular basis.
Basis. Oh man,
So
that's
we
true.
have to understand that it's again, relationships don't happen by osmosis.
Yeah.
They don't happen accidentally. They don't necessarily happen out in a vacuum somewhere. They happen because two people decide
Decided. Yes.
to engage one another in a I guess in a means by which they are sharing who they are with the other person.
Mm.
So I mean, just again, that's just a basic, fundamental understanding of, some of the pediatrics of what relationships are.
You said pediatrics. So all right. So basically, so the key thing I took from that though is basically, is your relationship a living organism?
Yeah.
Is it alive?
Is
And
it
I
alive?
think that's where you start with. That's the one thing you have to be honest. And some of us, if we're gonna grade ourselves, sometimes it's not alive. It's dead. It's bleeding. It's wounded. It's hostile. And I'm saying this to say, I'm only saying this to say, I think we use the term relationship out of context
Okay.
because being in a relationship is just that. Like you are with God. It's like you're either in fellowship or you're out of fellowship.
Okay.
You understand? You're either on your status is either active or revoked.
Yeah.
So if you're going to be in an actively great relationship, you have to make sure and check that these things are actively being these check marks are actively being checked off. If not, you have to say to yourself, we're connected, but I don't think we're in a relationship.
Okay.
We have this title, we have longevity, we have history, whether it be long or short, but we're not actively acting like two people in a relationship.
So let's kind of clarify some
Yeah.
of this. Let's kind of I want to kind of mess it up a little bit too. And so I want us to really begin to think about this. And I'll say it like this. I think a lot of when we do get into relationship, and it happens to a lot of relationships, if we're not careful, if we're not really paying attention, and that is the fact that a lot of times what happens is we get into relationships and they start out well, and then we put it on autopilot.
Yes.
And things just kind of simply just go along. It's
Right.
like this. It's like when you're paying for a subscription to a streaming service and they ask you for your payment information and you put your payment information in there on a monthly basis. That dollar amount is going to come out of your account to make sure that subscription is still active, regardless of whether you watch it or not.
Yeah.
If you never watch, and there's a couple of streaming services I can think of in my own mind that I have, that I haven't watched, but I'm still being billed the cost. Okay.
Yeah.
And so what I want us to kind of look at is the fact that, are we doing this on autopilot, or are we actively, deliberately participating in our relationships? And that's how you can tell whether or not a relationship is actually viably alive, is the fact that, are you participating in the relationship, or is it just on autopilot?
Because that's a great point. Because here, let's think about this. Think about the workplace. When you're hired, it is the beginning of the contract of a relationship. You're in a relationship. You can move about. You got the badge to take you here and there. You got access, right? But think about it. When the relationship at work ends, access is denied. You are walked out of the building, and you may have some friends on the inside that may say, we're going to meet you down at the Buffalo Wild Wings, but you cannot come back on the property. You can't walk back in and out and around and revisit. It's over. But and even when it comes to, let's just say, Comcast, any of these places, like you said, that we may have accounts of Hulu, Netflix, maybe we're paying to keep them, but they're there when we need them because we have not ended the relationship.
Right.
But it's nothing like trying to tap into those things and being rejected, and then picking up that phone and calling that 1-800 and saying, I was trying to see season 1, but you haven't been active with us for 6 months. And you're like, oh, and if this day and age, if we're not careful, and God knows I'm putting myself on the chopping block first. Sometimes we can live our lives, we can be in a relationship, but be operating in an inactive status. We're in the relationship, but we are disconnected. That means we're not necessarily inserting the necessary vitalizations to keep it alive, to keep it strong, to keep it healthy, to keep it from the hair falling out. You're keeping all those things in there to keep it strong. And again, this was on me because I say, we are like tripping. We out here, a lot of us are taking these things for granted, and we're really in denial of what's really the real mantra of our relationship, of
Okay.
what's really on the front heading of what you got going on. We
Right.
got to think about that. And it's like, it's relationships are beautiful, but they are work.
They are.
And
Absolutely.
and
Yeah.
and it's work because it's not just managing yourself. It
Right.
is managing. You're trying to manage you, and you're trying to manage the relationship. And if I don't know about anyone else, if you're the man in the equation, now women they always are the behind the scene boss, but the men we like to feel like we are the ones who are managing the workflow of
Okay.
how things flow. Is
Okay.
what should we invest in for the ROI or whatever? Where should we reside? What
Hmm.
should we do? All these kind of things. And so,
Hmm.
if God forbid, if the man goes rogue, and the
Hmm.
woman being the organic follower, meaning not saying women can't be independent. I'm just saying women are organic reciprocators and
Yeah.
followers. When
Okay.
you lay something out for the woman, she'll double it, multiply it, so on and so forth.
Right.
So if the man goes rogue, the woman is out of her element. She's not in a place where she naturally thrives. If
Okay.
he's not on point, she's
Okay.
just like, okay, I love him, but oh my God, that thing like this. And so this is now leading me and segueing me into the next part, which I think where we should really delve because this is where the rubber meets the road.
Okay.
And this is some of us, we call ourselves being in relationship and
Hmm.
existing in places where we are depleted,
Hmm.
unhappy,
Hmm.
frustrated, upset, angry, and all this. But we
Hmm.
call it relationship. But if you look at the actions between the two, what is happening is an act of war is ensuing. An act of war is when the other person has decided not to be your partner, but they have not been able to overcome some offenses, some lies, some
Right.
deceits, some cheating, whatever you call it, and they have now subliminally became your opposition.
Mm.
They're with you, but they're not with you. They're
Wow.
with you physically, but I'm not with you because I don't trust you now. I don't take your word now. I don't believe this now. You let me down over here. You did this, that, and the other, and now you are trying to call yourself walking together, being out, being over here. But really, if people really look, they can say, hey, they're not in unison. They are at odds. You
Mm.
know what I'm saying? Those two people are at odds and they are not in sync. And I brought this point up to you earlier before with the show when I told you if you think about war in a sense, let's think about how we see a lot of these movies. And a lot of them it'll show like those Game of Thrones days when they go to war, you'll see
Right.
this massive army spread out across the field, and on the other side you'll see the same army, right?
Right.
Another army over there. Now here's
Right.
the key kicker the thing about being in a war is you do have a chance to at least fix it. And I'm saying that to say, when you see those two armies across the field, before they say charge and go to commence the killing,
Hmm.
sometimes you'll see the leaders, the kings there. And the
Right.
kings say, let's go to the middle and
Right.
reason. And
Right.
they come to the middle of the field and they try to reason and say, all right, before we say charge and cut off everyone in sight, kill
Right.
everyone in sight. Is it necessary to do this?
Right.
Do we have the reserve to fix this relationship between the two? I
Yeah.
know you're offended. I know I did this. I know you did this. You said that. Can we survive this, or are we at the point where we should simply turn these horses around and say two T's in a bucket? Let's get it. Do you understand what I'm saying? And
Right.
then you realize if you say let's get it, if you maintain in a relationship where you're at war long enough, there will be casualties.
Absolutely.
Somebody is going to be cut down if
Hmm.
you don't address the war.
Right.
Even if you still have love and care for the person, if you don't change the posture of war, it is going to be your early demise. You understand what I'm saying? So
Right.
go ahead, you talk on that a
Oh,
little
yeah.
bit.
No, I think it's important. I think one of the things that occurred to me while you were talking in regards to this whole idea of war, and I think what happens is, or what precipitates that is the fact that we don't we don't check in with each other like we should on a regular basis. And I think a
Mm.
lot of times if you leave that significant other unchecked, if you never
Yeah.
go back to find out how they are actually doing,
Yeah.
what's going on in their mind,
Right.
how is their life going, then yeah, they're going to feel some kind of way, and you're
Yeah.
going to feel some kind of way. And I think at the very crux of this matter is there's obviously a breakdown in your communication.
Mm.
You're not talking to each other. I'll use your example of the whole the whole war aspect. So ordinarily, what happens is if you are a king of a kingdom and you are about to have war, what usually happens before the armies get on the battlefield, before everybody puts their armor on and grabs their swords, what happens is there's what's known as diplomatic envoys that go
Mm.
to each other's that goes to the opposing kingdom,
Right.
try to work out a resolution
Right.
before we have to go to war.
Right.
Well, all a diplomatic envoy is a person who communicates the message of
Mm.
the king or the person in charge or the sovereign to the opposing force to try to facilitate a peace treaty,
Wow.
to try to work out some type of accord so
Right.
that we don't have to spend the money necessary to engage in a war, because a war can be expensive.
Absolutely. Oh man, you talking?
I'm not even talking about the whole
Yeah.
the loss of life and the casualties, but from just an economic standpoint, a war is a great. I mean, it's a vast expenditure. You're
Right.
spending money. You got to get all these resources together. You got to make your
Right.
swords. You got to make your armor. You
Right.
got to buy food to feed the soldiers.
Right.
So let's think about it like this, and I'll use the Bible real quick.
Okay.
He said before a king goes to war, he considers the cost first,
Mm.
and if he realizes that he cannot pay the cost to finance the war, he sends an envoy or a diplomat to represent his interests to the opposing force in the hopes that we can work out a peace treaty.
Wow.
So the question is, how many of us are willing to work out a peace treaty with those that we believe that we're at war with?
Wow.
And a lot of times what happens is, because of the fact that we're not in communication with each other, we make a lot of assumptions and
Yeah.
suppositions based on information we don't have, but we fill in the gap. And this is the reason why we're going to war.
Mm.
We haven't talked to the other person. The other person is going through the same thing that you're going through, but because of the fact that you don't want to talk to them and you don't want to open up your mouth and say what's really going on, now we're coming to blows now. Now we're at the moment of having a battle.
Wow.
This is actually having a conversation, which would have been a lot cheaper than actually going to war.
Yes. So Demetria Pitts made a good point. She says, if using the analogy of war and have decided to do so, there's also a plan.
Yeah,
You don't walk into war without a plan.
that's
But
right.
this is why sometimes a lot of us brew in silence before the war starts. Before we start to declare war, we start counting the costs and saying, you know what? She did this, she did that, and I told her not to do this, but that's okay. And you sit back and you stew and you concoct a
Right,
plan. You
right.
you concoct a plan on how you're gonna go about this psychological war, so to speak, and you do
Yeah.
it. But here's the thing: reaching back to the good relationship piece and tying into what you said about having the resources. A great relationship can in most times survive a horrible war. Why? Because in order to have a great relationship, you have would have had to tithe within your own self. You have to tithe into what you have. You know
Okay.
how we tithe into the kingdom. If
Yeah,
you're
yeah, yeah.
tithing into what you have, you're believing in what you have with this person.
Okay.
You're
Yeah.
saying, I believe in you, so I'm
Right.
going to tithe in us. I'm
Yeah.
going to sow me into us
Okay.
so that when these winds and these currents hit us, we can survive the curve.
Right.
A relationship or a marriage where there's no tithing, self-tithing, it will
Hmm.
not survive it.
Yeah.
You'll know what you made of when that wind comes, when that wind comes, or when those bad things start to happen, and all these things, and betrayal and deceit, or whatever you call them, when they come, when the quicker the dissipation, the less money in the bank.
Yeah.
There's no reserve, right?
And again, to use your analogy in terms of these medieval kingdoms going to war, ordinarily, sometimes it happens that the kingdoms actually have had a relationship with one another. They have an economic agreement to exchange goods. There's an exchange of goods, because there's obviously a benefit to me being in close relationship or in connection with you. So if I'm trading with you, then I can receive the benefit of being with you economically. There are some things that you have in your kingdom that can definitely be a plus to my kingdom, and definitely something that I have can be a plus to your kingdom. And so there's an exchange, there's a reciprocation, if you will, of goods, of services,
a bartering, if you will.
We're trading these things, and as a result of our being in connection with one another, we both benefit. There's an investment that's been made, because if I'm only going to make an investment in what I believe is valuable and what I believe is worth my investment, I'm never going to invest my time, my energy, my money into something that I don't value. And see, here's part of the issue. The reality is that value is something that is dynamic. Value is not just status, or rather static, but value is supposed to either appreciate or depreciate depending on how we see it.
Absolutely.
And so we have to begin to value the relationships that we have with one another, understanding that they require time, they require energy. Now, if you don't value the relationship, if you don't value the exchange that we have, then we're going to shut down communication, and we're not going to talk to each other. And then at the moment of my offense, at the moment that I become incensed, at the moment when I become frustrated, is the moment that we go to war. Why? Because we haven't continued to talk to each other.
Now, that's a powerful point. Now let's connect that to, let's think about when you said when you get to shut down. Let's think about let's go back to the living organism part.
Okay.
When something is living, it is highly sensitive. It's open. You could think about this. When I'm gonna give people a hint of when you are likely at war, or beginning to be.
Yeah.
When you say, when you're asking your person, you good? You all right? When you're getting slow responses or no responses, silent treatment, looks that can kill, usual acts of benevolence denied. Oh, I'm not gonna make your plate. You're not going to have your normal things set out. Oh, I'm probably not going to go with you to eat. I'm not going to call you back. I'm not going to respond to your text until hours later. Things like that. Those are those little small things amidst the huge things of, like, there's the obvious of cursing somebody out, yelling and fighting. That's the obvious. But war starts with small planning.
True. And
those little small things like that are the beginnings of the small plannings. And that's when you see they're starting off small, but it is brewing into a huge thing. And I would challenge people, because there's a lot of people out here that are hurt, that have been this, that, and the other done to them. And I would say that is the most vital part of the war piece that you have to pay attention to, because everybody knows their level of being able to move about while being hurt. Some people, think about some of these shows where you see on these movies where your favorite action hero will get shot, and then they're like, come on, they put their arm on his shoulder and they running him about, they holding him up, but they carrying him about, but he's supposed to be tough and I can survive the hurt, and he gets to be better in the hospital later. Where there's some people, when they get shot in the midst of this Marvel movie, they shot, you look over there, oh, they didn't make it. They don't have it. They don't have the inner strength to make it. And so some people, when we are hurt, you got to say to yourself, is this a good time to call myself continuing, or do I need to sit down and rest? Because some people will get hurt and they want to keep the ship going. And while they're hurt in the ship, they're hurt and saying that they're going to remain, but they're cursing the person.
Right.
Every chance they get, they calling you every name but a child of God. They doing every wrong and just backstabbing thing they could think of.
Okay.
Instead of just saying, I need to realize I am hurt, I am wounded, because all of this that I'm doing and saying is not becoming, it's not of who I really am. It's
Right.
me flaring out my emotions.
Yeah.
Now, while you're at war, like we said earlier, war can be fixed if both parties are willing
Right.
and willing to put the work in to
Yeah.
fix whatever started the skirmish in the first place. Because
Yeah.
we all have. I think I'll go on the record to say I believe most of us, if we're honest, most of us move about in a small space of active war. Very few of us remain for a while in the great relationship part. We shift between relationship and active war because active war, it may sound extreme. I see your face, Adam. Jeez,
Oh,
it may sound extreme. No, I'm joking with you. No, it may sound extreme, but trust me, in this day that we're living in, we are highly offended. You can't say nothing to anybody. You can't barely do anything, and we're at war. War is simply a change of posture towards your mate. It's
okay.
a defensive posture.
Let me just
Go
jump
ahead.
in. Let me jump in here real quick. So
All right, come on. You want to preach? Come on.
Whatever. I understand exactly what you're saying. I know where
Yeah.
you're going. So let me kind of like pull it all out and unpack it completely. So yeah, you're right. So the war, i.e., the disagreement that we might have or the argument that we might have,
Right.
is a part of the relationship.
Right.
You cannot take that part out. You know why? Because disagreements come from having different perspectives. Which means we're always going to see things differently. We should see things differently. I'm a different person from you. You're a different person from me. We're not going to always see eye to eye on every issue.
Absolutely.
Okay. And so that means inevitably, we are going to have some disagreements.
Absolutely.
We are going to have some moments when we're not always going to agree on every single thing. There are going to be some moments when I get frustrated. There are going to be some moments when you're looking at me like, you know what?
What's wrong
I don't
with
need
him?
you right now. Okay, you're getting on my nerves. Go somewhere. Okay.
Right.
There are going to be some moments when we don't always agree on everything. But ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, that is what a relationship is.
Yeah.
It's about being able to exchange ideas that don't always match up and then being able to see that particular idea from your significant other's perspective. Being able to see it from their perspective, being able to understand it and go, okay, you know what? I see what you're saying. Let's figure out how we can come to a common solution with this.
Yeah.
Okay. And so here's the thing. In order for us to make this relationship work, number one, of course, there has to be a willingness to make it work.
Okay.
There has to be a yieldedness to make it work. There certainly has to be a vulnerability and a transparency between the two of us. The other thing that we need to understand when it comes to disagreements or arguments or what have you is the fact that it's okay. It's okay to have an argument. It's okay. You're fine. It's okay. I want you have full permission to not agree with everything that I see.
Absolutely.
You should have full permission to be able to do that. Here's the other thing I want you to understand. Learn how to fight fair.
Oh, now you're talking.
Don't hit below the belt.
Yeah.
If we're talking about taking the trash out, don't bring up when I left the toilet seat up in the bathroom and when I forgot to do such and such, or I didn't respond to a text. No, let's focus on what the actual issue is. Right. Okay. Don't bring up past stuff that hasn't been done. No. And if that's the case, choose another time to have a sit down conversation about that and be honest about that issue. But don't cloud the present issue with past issues.
Yeah.
That's not fair. Because you held on to whatever you held on to for as long as you held on to it and didn't say anything about it at the time. Keep on.
Right.
Hold on to it.
Right. No, that's real talk.
Again, address the issue at another point in time, but don't bring it into this present moment. You know what I'm saying? Learn how to fight fair. Don't hit below the belt. You know what I'm saying? Keep the facts.
Yes. I mean, man, that's real talk, because like you said, what we do, this right here, what you're talking about now, is one of the killers, period, is when we it's just, I mean, you're calling it, we're talking about the same thing, but you calling it fighting fair. I call it nowadays we're being petty. Today, petty is all over the place, and we cannot pull back. And it's like we have to. It's almost as if people nowadays are just fighting for not only just for the sake of the argument, but my self pride, my dignity. Like they reaching way back, and I need you to proclaim everything I believe and stand on, Adam, or this will not have a good end. People are taking this thing and they're willing to stand off in the name of petty. And this is grown people. This ain't 20 something. This is 40 some people who don't want to talk, who don't want to answer the phone, who don't want to meet, who don't want to do this, who just want to do all of this stuff because they're mad. Okay, like you said, things happen in relationships, and it's the whole point of us learning one another. It's called stretching. When you're stretching something, it's uncomfortable. When the relationship is supposed to grow, it's going to stretch, be it a good stretch or a bad stretch. It's still stretching. And if we do this, and if we don't want to, we want to do this, and we want to come out here and just throw blows, go to blows, and just nowadays we fight so dirty. It's like here's the bigger piece of it. I have never, in all of my years of living, I have seen a whole lot of things. But nowadays in this era, this is the most grown folk pouting tantrums I've seen. It's like 2 and 3 year old people in the 40-year-old bodies, 50 and what and beyond. And people are expecting you to deliver acts of service and perfection as they deem in relationship. Or if not, I'm not happy. Because guess what? Another person going to do this. Guess what? Here's the biggest thing about that. Yes, there are plenty of people on this earth. You know, if you wasn't, God forbid, Adam, you wasn't married today, I'm sure there's somebody that'll say, I'm going to marry Adam tomorrow, and vice versa to your wife, and so on. That's just life. But the thing is this, having a body and having the truth is two different things. We can procure a body, a person, a physical person all day, every day, but you're not going to find your truth just like that. Okay. It's just not that simple. So if you want to be, quick to just jump and say another person is this, another person is that, yeah, that's all day, every day. But what good is that? Because at the end of the day, what you're doing is expending more of yourself, more of your body. More of this, more of you got to reintroduce this person to your family. Go over here to do this, all of this crazy stuff. When really we just need to learn to be humble, be appreciative, be thankful, not be so quick to react. We're so reactive. Stop being so sensitive. And sometimes, look, another thing is this: approach is everything. What you say and how you say something to a person, you can get way far. Like women, sometimes I know women always say, well, I can't talk to him because he just don't listen. Trust me, if you talk to a person, and it's vice versa to a man to a woman, if you talk to a person in a certain vernacular, you can get whatever response you want if you come correct. The problem is we coming sideways, saying all kind of stuff, and one of the worst things you can do is call people out of their name, whether it's cursing or not. You're saying this, that, and the other, and you just when you are hitting below the belt and not fighting fair, and when you're tearing a person down, that is just automatically going to shut the average person down. Right. And if you say it, if you beat on them enough, whether physically or emotionally, somebody gonna dip. That's just flat out. This is the day people aren't having it. People at base level, people say, just at least you're going to give me respect. At least you're going to just treat me decent. I'm not saying you got to sit up here and shout me like a king and a queen every day, but at least give me, like, as they say in the world of Adam in the book, a reasonable service. Please bring me at least a reasonable service. You can at least do that. This stuff out here we doing nowadays, it makes you so reluctant to do the things that should be normal, that should be natural. You don't want to love on this, and you don't want to be kind and thoughtful because you still stuck on being how you was disrespected, how you was talked to, how this was, that, and the other. Forget about sex. No, I'm pissed. You forget about all that. You got all these different things. I say it all the time. It's hard to move about and then treat people as they want when you are offended. It's hard. That's why we need to stay in front and center of apologies and forgiveness.
Okay.
We have forgotten that. Now we are relating and calling ourselves loving and moving on, but we're not forgiving, we're not forgetting, and we're not apologizing. Well, that is not a relationship. You are still in a denial state of war. If you have not apologized, if you have not forgiven, the relationship is at a halt. And you're lying to yourself. That's just what it is.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, let me I want to backtrack on something that you said. I think, and I don't want us to miss it. Because I think it's important, and I really think that it's very relevant for a lot of us. And you talked about the fact that something to the effect that we're in these 40-year-old bodies, but we are acting like 4-year-olds.
Yes.
Here's what I want to get us. I want us to get us to focus on this, and I want to kind of break down the whole relationship aspect to the individual, and that is the fact that there needs to be a self realization, even a self acknowledgement of our actual emotional and psychological age. And I think a lot of us, to some degree, are not as mature emotionally or even psychologically to be able to handle the relationships that we're in.
Wow.
We emotionally, okay, so physically, you might be 45, 47,
right?
But emotionally,
you're 9.
You're 7.
Yeah. Wow.
You're 8 years old.
Wow.
Which means a 7 or 8-year-old is limited in their capacity to handle things emotionally.
Oh, that's amazing.
So there hasn't been any growth for a number of years on that level. And so when you walk into relationships with your 4-year-old or 7-year-old self and a 40-year-old problem occurs, your 4-year-old self doesn't know how to handle it because it's never had the ability to grow to that level.
Wow.
It's a real issue, and I believe that's part of the contributing factor of relationships in our lives not working out the way that they should, because we have not grown to that level. We're not all in that place. Again, emotionally, I'm a 4-year-old. Emotionally, I'm a 10-year-old. And so what happens is that our behavior reflects that.
Yeah.
I'm right, and I know I'm right, and I want you to say that I'm right.
Right.
Grown folk, real grown folk, mature folk who know about their life and have lived their life don't act like that.
Good, nice.
They don't conduct themselves in that way.
Yeah.
And see, you know a tree by its fruit. And so if you're walking around throwing tantrums, and you 47 years old, you throwing tantrums because you want somebody to listen to what you got to say. Come on. Yeah. It's again, I believe that it is at least one of the contributing factors to the demise of your relationship, because emotionally, psychologically, you're just not equipped to handle these real everyday grown folk problems in the way that you should.
Wow. Man, and the thing, and here's the unfortunate part about all that solid truth you just spit. The thing is this: the sad part is, behind all of those tantrums, like you said, the grown 40-year-old something with the 7-year-old reality, right, of their emotions. The reality is, it is what people do as a defense mechanism.
Yeah.
They don't know how to protect. They're out here wanting love, but they also know that when it comes to love, they're a pushover. And so rather than succumb to being vulnerable and taking the vulnerable ride of trying to see blind faith to obtain love, they rather just sit back and be in a defensive posture, and anything that you do, they ready to combat it. And that's how you can always tell when someone is basically immature when it comes to dealing with shouldering their hurt. How they handle their hurt tells the whole story. And it lets you know people aren't ready. All of us, the best of us sometimes, we fall into tough places when it comes to vulnerability and fear of being hurt.
Yeah.
And I think that's the focal point of all this. All of us have different ways that we act out, trying to defend ourselves and not being vulnerable, not being taken advantage of or walked on. And, oh, I feel stupid for this happening to me. When at the end of the day, look, it's life. It's just
Yeah.
sometimes unfortunate things happen. It
Yeah.
happens to the person, the victim, and it even happens to the person inflicting the pain.
Right.
All of us, because most of the times the person that inflicts the pain is the person who's also not overcame their issue with hurt.
That's
and
true.
their fear of being hurt.
That's true.
And a lot of men, believe me, I don't know, I can say this for women. I always like to say women were created very resilient. They have to be. They bear children. But women were created very resilient. And this is why the average woman, let's just say she gets married in her late 30s, 40s, and beyond, she has a slew of pain stories. She can say, one of her girlfriends can say, when they're having what's that thing they have before they get married, the night before?
Engagement party, bachelor
party.
Okay.
If they having a speech, and if one of the girlfriends had too much to drink, somebody is always going to haul off about 3, 4, 5, 6 men that the woman was really, really into. She was really, really in love. That girl, remember Jerry? We had to pull you off the floor when he left you alone. Remember Adam? Remember when he was this? Remember Charles was married? They're going to give you a whole story because women will give their 100 all when it comes to love every time. And they start to wish all over again when a new scenario presents himself. Men, on the other hand, we will come and be present physically, but in our mind, we still are very much battling with the hurt from Rosita. Because in our mind, we're saying, wait a minute, the last time I really gave myself all this vulnerability and gave it to this person, this is what happened. Now, I do like this person a whole lot, but I'm going to be very trepidatious in moving with them. I'm going to move real slow. I'm going to give just a little bit. The unfortunate part about this is you got the woman on the other side who's ready to give 100. And you got the man who's only spitting out at 15, 25%. The woman is like, I'm 100. I mean, my girlfriend's already picked out the colors of the wedding. And the guy's like, man, I'm still dealing with Rosita and what she did. Just being honest. And and it's not until we get to a certain point of comfort where we say to ourselves, I think she has my best interest. I don't think she's trying to do something to hurt me. And I say this all the time. And I'm going to try not to, I don't want y'all to think I'm not being chauvinistic or anything, but please listen when I tell you. I don't like to hear, I love you, I love you, I love you if you won't cover me. If you are quick to expose me, I don't want to hear love. Love is covering. That's what love is. If you're going to love somebody, you're going to cover them because guess what? You're going to cover them to the world and you can curse them out once them curtains come down. It's you and that person and you can really get in them and be like, you know what? That was very so-and-so. I would have never thought you would have did that, Adam. And then after all that's over, but that's okay. We're going to live to see another day. I still love you, whatever the case is. But when you have these situations and you allow yourself to become so angry that you just lose all facade of sense and logic, and you just say, let the chips fall where they may, that is not love. That's a flat out fight. It's not love. And you are in a fight with someone. You're not in no love because guess what? Me and somebody could be out there in the Walmart parking lot cussing each other out, but you let somebody come in and be like, yeah, you punched so-and-so in the face. Guess what? Real love, both of them people are going to turn around and be like, you mind your blankety blank business. Because they're saying, this is our fight. You get out of it. But we still covering each other. But when you get in there and you call yourself fighting the person that you love, but you allow the person to take the shots in front of the whole world, that is not love. That's foolishness. And we need to be able to separate these things and stop going around here saying these titles of these things and professing these things that aren't. Really, what it is, which
Yeah.
segs way to the last part. And this is probably the most severe part. But this is when I said we've already talked about relationship. We talked about some of us being in a good relationship, some of us being in what we call an act of war, and
Mhm.
last but not least, some of us are simply sleeping with our enemy.
Wow.
And when you're sleeping with your enemy, this usually occurs in long-term marriages where people have withstood some real heavy stuff, right?
Mhm.
But they
Okay.
haven't left. They
Right.
withstood it, but they haven't left. Even some of these relationships that have been going on for a long time, and maybe they have seen a particular pain a time or two, and a two, and a two, and a two,
Right.
right? And then
Right.
sometimes, if you're not careful, that thing will become so embedded in you, that resentment, that
Yeah.
it will turn into your life's mission is saying, I'm gonna get you.
Wow.
I'm gonna hurt you.
Wow.
And I'm gonna go sleep. I'm gonna sleep beside you, but I'm gonna be plotting your funeral while I'm beside you. I'm gonna be we're gonna be sitting up there watching Netflix, and you saying, I wish Kevin them shoot him for real. When all I
Um,
mean, I'm telling you, this enemy thing is real. People want to be with you physically to ward off others,
mm,
but they want to have. Why do you think you hear those stories where they always say, those mob guys, yeah, go catch Adam, but don't touch him, bring him to me, let me deal with him?
wow.
That's how people are. They
Wow.
when you have offended them, I'm going to deal with you. And look,
Mm,
here's always the favorite. Why do we got to involve God in the war? Don't bring the Lord in the war, because guess what? When there's regular life going on, the Lord ain't considered. So don't bring the Lord to your defense when you're mad. Why do we always got to say? Because you know what? Because see, this morning the Lord and the God, no, He ain't about no war. He said, look, in fact, He tells you, vengeance is mine. Get out the way.
right.
Correct? Get
Right.
out the way. But we want to say, we want to get in the way, use him, but then have him to be at our side while we do what we do.
Wow.
You understand what I'm saying? And so this enemy thing is the reality for a lot of relationships. Now, I'm going to try to I'm going to throw a little bit of hope in there. I
Just
would
a
like
little.
to think if there's help for the reprobate mind, right?
Mm-hmm.
There has to be help for the severely wounded. And the severely, because the person who's with you, if they're still physically in your presence,
Mm-hmm.
but has posed themselves to be your enemy, um, I have to say there has to be something that can break up the fallow ground if you approach them correctly and say, I know I have hurt you, I have wounded you, and I have probably severely wronged you.
Mm-hmm.
I have been ignorant. I ignored your feelings. I was not showing enough empathy on your behalf. I apologize for the offense, for the offenses, if that's applicable.
Yeah.
All of these things. And all I really would like to do is for you to forgive me so that we can work on rebuilding this furnace fire.
Right.
Now, and that's a stretch. That's a stretch. But I would like to believe there is hope, Adam, as at the cross. There has to be hope at the cross.
Okay.
But all love doesn't have to be lost. But in some of these cases, when we out here sleeping with the enemy, and the dangerous thing about sleeping with the enemy is your life. The longer you sleep with the enemy, the more hits your life take,
Mm.
because when a person does not have your best interest in at heart, you just receive the worst of everything.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to address a couple of things. So
Come on.
I want to deal with the fact of when did they become the enemy?
Mm,
Here's where I'm going with this. If
okay.
if I say that I love you and I am committed to you and I've
Yeah.
devoted my life to you, we are sharing our lives together.
Right.
How do I allow myself to become so offended, so frustrated, so so exasperated that now you are my enemy. The one that I'm with, the one that I'm committed to, the one that I would at some point in time I said that I would give my life for. Now I've allowed whatever external situation to corrupt me so that now I don't see you as my lover or my friend or the one who has my back, but I see you as my enemy.
Ooh.
Here's what I want us to kind of look at. I want us to look at the fact that if we are not keeping current accounts with those who are in our lives, and what I mean by current accounts is if I'm allowing stuff to fester on the inside of me, if I'm not being upfront with telling you how I'm feeling, or if something made me upset or something made me angry, if I'm holding on to bitterness, and if I'm holding on to resentment, for the sole purpose of getting you back, then I have to question the validity of our relationship. Because if I'm in a real relationship with you and I love you and I say that I love you, how do you become the enemy? How is it that instead of a Peter or even a John, I got a Judas? What's wrong with my picker? What's wrong with my picker? When did you become the enemy? And so we got to start thinking about this stuff. We got to start thinking about this psychologically. I can't look at you like that. If there is any hope for this relationship to be salvaged, even if we don't stay together, if there's any hope for us to have something akin to being friends beyond the demise of the relationship, I cannot see you as my enemy. And here's the thing, that's the enemy's goal for you. That you see your brother and your sister as the enemy and not the enemy as the enemy. That's his time-proven tactic that's worked time and time again. You don't see the enemy for who the enemy actually is, but you're looking at this diversion. You're looking at this distraction as the actual enemy. Come on, you got to wake up. Wake up. Wake up. Come on. Rub the sleep out your eyes. Drink some coffee. Do something, because I'm not the enemy.
Wow.
You're not the enemy.
Yeah.
Let's look at who the enemy really is and let's attack them. Let's deal with that.
Wow.
That's what I want to get that up.
Wow.
Okay. Again, I think it's important. I think it's important now more than ever, like I said before, that we keep current accounts. And I'll use this analogy. Whenever you don't pay your bill, your bill call goes into a default moment. And then it becomes 15 days behind, 30-day behind, and now you're accruing late fees because your account is not current. The longer I don't pay that bill, the more late fees I accrue in the default status of that bill. The longer I withhold payment, the higher that bill goes, to the point where now I need a payment arrangement.
Oh, wow.
But here's my point. My point is, if I had kept that account current, even if I had called the representative on the phone to work out some type of situation, some type of arrangement to make payment on the bill at a future point in time, at least then that would have at least informed them that I was actually working toward trying to pay this bill. But I didn't keep the bill current. I let it languish. I let it fester. I let it accrue all of this extra past due bill notice on it. And now we're at the moment of disconnect. Now they're coming to turn my stuff off. They're coming to disconnect the relationship because I haven't kept a current account. What I'm saying to us today is keep your account current. Keep the lines of communication open, as difficult as it might be, as ugly as the truth probably actually is. Keep your account current. Say what you need to say. And look, you feel what you feel. You feel what you feel. I'm not saying that what you feel is the truth. I'm not even saying what you feel is the reality, but you feel what you feel, and your feelings are valid because you feel them. Say that. Let's talk about that, and then let's talk about the facts so that we can work to resolve whatever the issue is. Again, I'm not discounting your feelings. We are all emotional creatures. Men, and men may not want to necessarily admit this because know it. But men are just as, if
as
not more,
emotional as women. Yeah,
to
you're
women as women are.
right. You're right.
But you didn't hear it from me. You ain't hear it from me. I didn't tell you that.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
But our feelings are feelings, and you need to be able to give voice to your feelings. You need to be able to give agency to your feelings so that people understand how you feel, so they don't take you for granted.
Yeah.
And once we deal with our emotions and we've resolved our issues, now we can deal with the facts of the situation.
Yeah.
Now we can deal with what we need to deal with in terms of resolving our misunderstanding with one another. It's not, listen. It's not going to happen overnight, but we can at least initiate the conversation, initiate a series of conversations so that we can work toward bringing peace and tranquility back to our relationship.
Yeah. Wow.
It's not easy. I'm not saying it's not easy. I'm not saying that it's easy. I'm saying that it's going to take work.
Yeah.
You're going to have to invest some time in this. If you really value this, if you really value me, and you value this relationship, and you value the life that we have both built together, that we cried over, that we've had sleepless nights over, that to some degree some of us have shed blood over, then it's worth something. Just don't throw it away. Let's actually work to resolve whatever these issues are, so that we don't have to go to war, and so we don't have to feel like we're sleeping with the enemy.
Man, listen.
That's all the brother's saying.
Demetra Pitts made a good point, and I'm gonna follow up what she said. But she said there are love debits and credits. She says, don't call Jody. Now, she's a woman, talk about men, but we can do the same thing as men to women. But she was saying, don't call Jody or Jan for a payday loan, because that'll put you deeper in debt. Now, on that note that she's saying, here is the thing. Here is another reason why we are struggling. And I was going to say this earlier, because you said, how do we get to the place of being enemies? We get there by missing it at the stage of war.
Okay.
When we fail to fix it at the act of war stage, and it goes ignored, that's when I said there becomes a casualty. And the casualty simply means someone spiritually dying in the relationship. And when they spiritually lose their life in the relationship, they then resent the other person that's still alive, and they hate them. But the point I'm making is the reason when she said that part about instead of dipping off and getting a supplement somewhere else, here's the thing. When we do that in this day and time, it's difficult to keep focus, because we're living in the world of options, and everything is a fingertip clip away.
Okay.
I mean, it's either a swipe away, an inbox away, a DM away. All of your trouble is right there in your face. And the reason it's tearing us up the way it is because we have not paid attention to our deficits in our Department of Discipline. Some of us are failing at the discipline level. And it's not that we don't have good intentions, but when these things come about, just think about it. If I'm with you, you ain't a half bad looking person, and somebody coming up and always saying, you know what, Adam, you're so stupid. And on your way to work, you coming in there, you got your back, you looking sharp, and somebody like this, oh my goodness, he's handsome. Option. So now you're saying, I don't have to take you calling me stupid because she don't think so, he don't think so. It's always these options. And if you're not saying to yourself, look, options will always be there. I mean, they're going to be there until we put in the ground. But let me tell you something. If I don't know one thing, sir, all options are not good for you. PSA, all options are not good for you. Just because it's convenient, it's a convenient killer. Some of these things that are easy to get in are hellacious to get out of. So this is why we need to focus less on these options. I don't care how hard it gets. Say to yourself, if I chose this person, I'm committed to fighting with them. If I chose them, and if they chose me, let's be committed to fighting to keep it. Otherwise, these distractions and these other alternative arrangements, they're going to never go anywhere unless you shut the door. They're gonna always come. As long as you wake up and breathing and look like you do and speak like you do, Adam, whatever, you're gonna always have somebody who's saying, "Oh, I like how he speaks," and don't care if you got a wife or not, or
Right.
a woman. They're gonna all, vice versa to the men. Same,
Yeah.
it's just both sides. I mean, and we have to say to ourselves, if we're taking more L's, meaning losses, than we are victories, then there's something wrong in my department of discipline. I need to address where I am self-discipline wise and work on that. Other than that, I'm going to live a defeated life when it comes to love if I don't handle that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, yeah, sir. So, for those of you all who came on later on in the show, we just wanted you all to know today's show was pretty much about assessing the reality of your relationship. And we broke it down from saying it's either you're in a decent to good or a pretty functional relationship where the status is considered active, or you're in denial that you are not in an active relationship and what you're in is an act of war, meaning someone or another or both parties have went from working together to working against one another. Now, although you're at the at war stage, it doesn't mean you can't fix it.
Right.
Doesn't mean you can't fix it. You might be, everybody's at odds all the time. You can fix it. Now, how we got to the last part when we're talking about enemies is when you refuse to kill pride, kill arrogance, and get it right. When you refuse to do that and you continue to stay in the posture of war, you become enemies. So we have to let's avoid the enemy category. I mean, a healthy argument is normal. So war will happen, but let's capitalize on the war and fix it and not let it kill us.
Yeah.
That's all I have to say on it. So you have any last words before we get out of here?
No, man. I'm just like, I think again, I don't want us to overcomplicate this because I don't think it's that complicated.
Yeah.
When we do what we know to do, that's right. And again, I think one of the key issues is to keep the lines of communication open.
Yeah.
Talk about it. And when you don't feel like it, talk about it.
Yeah.
And when you do feel like it, talk about it. And when they don't feel like it, talk about it.
Right.
Keep the lines of communication open because that's going to keep you from holding on to stuff.
Right.
Don't be afraid to say what you need to say to that person. Yes, take your time. Think about what you need to say. Think about the approach that you need to say it with. But say it at some point in time. You need to say it. And so I think that, again, that'll help alleviate a lot of this stuff that's happening and keep us in good, healthy relationships.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Again, don't be afraid of the argument. Don't be afraid of the disagreement. It's a part of the relationship. We're different people. We're going to see things differently.
And know your triggers. Know your triggers and know your truth. Like, I can say for myself, I have to work on hearing my regurgitated mess repeated to me. Like in the argument, the stuff I've done or what I've done, this, that, and the other. It's something about when I hear it back and so why did you do this? And it's just like I want to hear it's like scratching the chalkboard. But that's not reality. Because if you did it, you should be able to sit there and sit under it.
That's right.
And it takes growth to get there. But sometimes we don't wanna sit there while somebody basically take a bucket of our puke that we put on them back on us.
Yeah.
We don't want to sit there and deal with that. We get mad and just like, get that away from me. I don't want to talk right now. And at the end of the day, you got to grow out of that place because, like you said, if we don't keep the communication fresh and active, there is no growth and there is no reprove. So that's what we have to work on. Let me just add some more preaching. Go ahead.
No. I just want to add one more point to that whole communication piece. And I've said this before, and I will continue to say it. And so we definitely need to talk to each other.
Yeah.
But I think what's just as important is listening to each other.
Ooh, oh, yeah.
And I want that to sit in your mind. I want it to sit in your heart that when we're talking to each other, are we actually listening to each other? Are we listening for understanding or are we waiting for our moment to jump in to say what we want to say?
And that's exactly what
listening is so key.
That's it. No, what you just said, I was just going to say that most people, if we're honest, it's like we're playing love double dutch.
Yeah.
It's like we're sitting there, I'm gonna bust him out as soon as he shut up. I'm gonna say this because I remember what he did last week and what he didn't do and all this, that, and other. And instead of listening and saying, you know what, if I'm really listening to Adam, it sounds like I heard him. It
Mm-hmm.
sounds like I really overlooked his issue, and I made him feel as if he was a non-factor, and
Right.
this is why he's acting out. Let me just be silent and let him communicate, or her. But
Yeah.
what we do is, because we take the posture, like I said, I deal with when you don't want to hear it back. When the person begins to come back and talk, you ready to slap them with something new. I
Mm-hmm.
got something for you because you shouldn't talk to me like that. Guess what? Bam, remember this? And we're not listening. We're just talking back at one another. We're not listening and
Yeah.
absorbing anything.
Yeah.
So yeah,
It's
the listening piece is
it's
paramount.
yeah, it's in the listening, and this is key. And you'll find this to be true every single time, because every time I've gotten into something, this actually happens. It's in the listening that, first of all, I begin to understand what you're saying.
Okay.
I can empathize with what you're saying because I can relate to that. But it de-escalates the situation, because now we're not so hot on trying to say it as much as we're trying to listen to what the other person is actually saying.
Mm.
Just practice the art of listening, really paying attention to what the other person is saying, and then, and on some level, try to I guess, say it back to them in terms of what you actually heard. Because a lot of times, some of the miscommunication is, I'm not listening to you.
Wow.
I'm not listening to you, which means I'm not understanding you.
Wow.
Okay. And so it just needs to be that, okay, we're kind of hot. I'm feeling kind of emotional right now. I'm
Yeah,
feeling
yeah.
like I want to snatch you and
Yeah.
you're around, but
Yeah.
I'm gonna de-escalate myself so that I can de-escalate this situation and really listen to what you have to say. And here's the thing: a lot of times it's not even the words that you say. Most of the time, it's the tone that you say it in,
Yeah, that's it.
and then it's the heart of what you're saying. And a lot of times we're not discerning the heart of the person that we're listening to, that we're talking to. We're just saying because we want to say it.
Yeah.
I'm saying, just take a moment to listen to what the other person's saying. That's all
You
I'm saying.
know, I would venture to say on that note, Mr. Ford, I believe love listens.
Yeah, it
Because
does.
when you think about it, love listens. Because when the reason why I said love listens, because at the end of the day, you want to make sure you're not missing a gripe, because your goal is healing. If
Right.
your goal is healing, you don't want to miss what's ailing the person that you love. So that
Yes.
even if you work on fixing it the next day, that night, the week after, you're still in mind saying, wait a minute, I have an action item to do list
Mhm.
on contributing towards healing my person.
Yeah.
So I need to recollect what they told me what was wrong, and what I took in from listening to them, and
Mhm.
turn around and pull the salve back on them. So yeah, we got to do that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All
Yes, sir.
right, sir. Well, this was a good talk today.
It
I'm
was.
glad I listened to the Holy Spirit on my birthday. But anyway, so anyway, anyway, so no, seriously, this was in my spirit to talk about this. That's why I
He
want.
turned 50 and got saved, y'all.
He done turned Act 2, and
He
now
turned 50 and
he
now
gonna
he know
actually
the
he gonna
Lord.
actually
Y'all need to praise him. Y'all need to praise him up
he
in
gonna actually apply what the Lord says now. But anyway, so listen, he's not just gonna hear it and write it in a song. He's gonna apply it.
I
So
mean,
anyway, so
Lord have mercy. He done saw Jesus. Lord have mercy. He had a road to Damascus experience. He
he got blinded. He was like, "Don't you go out
got
there in
blinded.
relationships
He had
anymore,
his
or
scales
you're
of
gonna be
order
blind."
in his eyes. He can see. Bless the Lord. Hallelujah.
Oh my gosh. All right, sir. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in and listening to Unscripted today. We appreciate you guys were really active and,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
doing your thing. I see Miss Pitts, Demetrius Pitts was trying to get the teacher's apple today. Demetrius was on it today. All right, Demetrius. But anyway, we appreciate y'all for tuning in. We'll be back at this. We won't go out. Y'all keep me in the prayer box so I won't go on these hiatuses. But anyway, nonetheless, I'm going to keep going. I know Adam is going to keep at me too. But anyway, we're going to keep this going because I believe at the end of the day, this stuff is helpful to the body at large. It even helps me. It helps me. So at the end of the day, let's continue to heal the world one heart at a time. and I will see you all again soon. Take care, Mr. Ford, and thanks for tuning in, sir.
Bless, guys.
All right. Thank you. All right. Love y'all.
Love y'all too.